Eurasia has become the focal point for evolving and future geopolitical strategies, with both Russia and China seeking to bring Eurasia within their own fields of influence. I'm joined down the line today by Gemma Ferst, Analyst at Eurasia Group, to discuss the current economic and political situation. Gemma, thank you for joining me. Firstly, why has Central Asia become the focal point for these two major global players?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that Central Asia was already within Russia's sphere of influence, and so there's a bit of a kind of dichotomy between Russia, which already exerted massive political control over Central Asia historically, and China, which didn't. And I think, first of all, I'd like to say that, Russia and China do share quite a few interests in the region. They are both interested in preventing any kind of Arab Spring uprisings, both interested in preserving stability. They don't have a human rights agenda, so they're both happy with the authoritarian kind of regimes there. They're also both concerned about terrorism, and they both share a desire to keep Western security structures more or less out of the region as much as possible. And that's why they formed the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which encompasses Russia, China, and the Central Asia states. But underneath this cooperation, there is a lot of friction and rivalry, and a lot of that is based around the fact that China is seen by Russia to be encroaching on the region, basically using the region as an oil and gas tank in a way that Russia's not able to do, doesn't need to do. And the Russian feeling is that slowly Chinese influence will extend to the political sphere as well. So I think that the two sources of friction between them is that the trade relations and exports of those countries will be more heading towards China and not to Russia, and also that could lead to then political influence, which is Russia's main concern.
With his re-election, Putin is accelerating the effort of impending US departure. Why is the Russian president so keen for less US influence? And is the current possible changeover in US politics good timing for the president?
Well, I think that's hard to say. The quality of the relationship between, whoever wins the US election and Putin. I think it's very important to say that, Putin generally wants less US influence in the region. And whilst they're happy for the US to kind of fight their battles and even to provide some security help, Russia's recently been pushing very heavily for, they pushed the Kyrgyz in Kyrgyzstan to cancel the lease for the Manas base after 2014, which is the US base there, and Russia is pushing very aggressively at the moment with Tajikistan to get its military base extended for 49 years there. So Russia is very much, now it has kind of the economic means to do so, is trying to shore up its own bases in the region as the kind of guarantor of security, and I think it will be expecting the US to do that a lot less. Whereas on the US side, I think they definitely want to keep those bases, particularly since that's a very near base to China for them. So, whilst the US, I think, is fully aware of its sort of lower role in Central Asia, I think it will aggressively seek to also kind of keep its footholds, to keep its bases open as long as it can.
For China, the efforts to increase its hold in Central Asia is economic. What does China hope to gain from connecting with these countries?
Well, I think I think it's right to say their interests are economic. It's a gas tank. Turkmenistan has massive gas reserves of 26 trillion cubic meters. China's already built one line going from Turkmenistan. That's going to carry 40 billion cubic meters by 2015. They may even build a second line through Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and into China. They have a deal to get 10 BCM from Uzbekistan. So really, it's a source of cheap gas supplies, and there's quite a price difference between what the Central Asia countries pay and what Russia pays, and that also gives China more leverage in negotiations to ship Russian gas to China. So there's a lot of reasons why, it's advantageous for China in particular on gas. They're also getting reasonable amounts of oil from Kazakhstan, 200,000 barrels a day. That's going to be doubled by 2020. But still, it's still a small proportion of Kazakhstan's oil. It's going to never exceed around 20% of the total oil that Kazakhstan's exporting. And the vast majority of that will continue to go through Russia and on to Europe. So in terms of gas story, China is the major player for Central Asia, but in terms of oil, the westward route will remain the major story.
In your opinion, what would be the best resolution to this ongoing dispute in the best interests of Central Asia? Which nation looks to be the biggest to gain here, and will this affect the economic and political ties between China and Russia?
I mean, I think they have other fish to fry, and I don't think Central Asia is necessarily a major point of contention. And you know, as I mentioned, they have a lot of common interests there, you know, including keeping the West out, keeping the region stable and authoritarian. And I think it will be more of a kind of agreed carve-up of resources. And you know, Russia doesn't want massive gas exports from Central Asia anymore, or oil exports actually for itself. It doesn't need that. It needs that political power. So I think that the trends that we need to watch are: could China take more upstream stakes in projects? I mean, it's got upstream stakes in Turkmenistan's massive Galkanish gas project, but there's a stake up for sale in the Kashagan project in Kazakhstan. If China were to take that, that would be quite a major thing, I think. The other thing to watch for is the degree to which China is successful in extending soft power in the countries. I mean, there's strong popular anti-Chinese feeling throughout Central Asia. They're worried about territorial encroachment one day, however unjustified that is. And they're basically scared of the rise of China and the size of China being right next to them. And so I think the degree to which China manages to overcome that through gifts to schools, sponsoring social foundations, that kind of soft power, I think that's what will cause, that could cause more friction with Russia, because the region is predominantly still, you know, most people at least know Russian, and there is a sort of historical tie with Russia which does not exist yet with China.
Thank you, Gemma, for your insights. Join me tomorrow on Dukas Copy TV, where I'll be taking part in a Targets in Focus interview looking at 3 currency pairs. Goodbye.